let's get into how I bedazzled my daughter's graduation cap. You're going to need a graduation cap, of course. I'm making a topper, so I'm using cardstock. I think it was 85 pounds or 65 pounds. I got it from Michael's. You're going to need the vinyl. I printed this out and I made my own little design with it, with her name. I'm using rhinestones, pink, white, and black. I'm going to use a Xacto knife, a wax pencil. I'm going to have rhinestone glue, which is liquid fusion, and put it in this precision tip bottle. First things first is I measured the graduation cap on a cardstock. I flipped it upside down and I just drew lines so I know where to cut. And then I have found this template on Cricut. It was Grad cap topper. I just picked the first one. It came with the top and the hole, so I used that as a guide to figure out the center of the graduation cap that I had. And it was 9x5 by 9x5, but you know, I had to get the circle in the middle, so I put that on like vinyl and I just put it on top of the cardstock and, you know, measured in the middle there, and I cut it out with the Xacto knife. This knife was super duper sharp, so just be very careful when you do use this. But yeah, I'm just removing that circle there, and then I'm gonna cut it out and see if it fits on top of the cap, which it did. The next thing I did was sand the vinyl. I like to sand the vinyl first before applying it because this is a first time project, so I don't know how it's gonna go. So instead of doing it later, I just do it ahead of time. It's also good to sand because when you rhinestone, it gives it something to adhere to. So right here, I'm applying the vinyl to the cap topper on the cardstock. And I did tear it because it was paper, and this was like a fresh piece of transfer tape. So try to get a little bit of use out of the transfer tape because it did like tear the top of the cardstock. But I did tape it as like a little fixer-upper, and I applied her name, and of course I went ahead and I took that middle piece out where you see Hello Kitty's like face, and it kind of worked out in my favor that my daughter wanted Hello Kitty because it's white and her graduation cap is white. So this was just a piece of cake, and I'm just going to cut the excess off with the Xacto knife, and you see if it's perfect. Next, I used the acrylic marker to color in the bow and the nose. I accidentally picked up the highlighter, it didn't work, so I went back in with a yellow acrylic marker for her nose, and I started to do the bedazzling. So I started off with the outline of Hello Kitty's face. I'm using a size 3M in black rhinestones. I was going to use the 5M, but it was too small, so I used 2 3M rhinestones like to do the border of the outline of Hello Kitty. For me, it's just easier to work from the outside and work your way in, and that's what I did. And I made sure I waited at least 5 minutes in between doing bling sections. So the next one I'm going to do is red. No rhyme or reason. I'm just placing random size rhinestones between sizes 2M and 5M. This would be considered the scattered method. Not my favorite method, but I wanted to just do a little razzle dazzle, I guess. Just go outside my comfort zone. And I did notice when I applied the glue and the rhinestones, it dried pretty quickly. I don't know if it's because it's cardstock or paper or the acrylic marker, but it dried pretty quickly. Like within 5 minutes, it was okay to touch. But I recommend just doing small increments of glue on top of the acrylic marker. If you're going to use an acrylic marker, just use smaller increments of glue. And here I'm applying the yellow for the nose. I think these were sizes 2M and 3M. It was pretty small. Next, I'm going to do the white. I'm using sizes 2M through 5M, and I'm going to use this size all the way throughout the entire head of Hello Kitty. I'm just placing the rhinestones randomly on the ear there, and then I started to fill in where like her whiskers are. Just random placement, nothing too special. just to see how things look, like how I felt about everything. And then next thing, I just kind of went along her outline of her face with the white rhinestones. And I continued to do that until I got closer to the middle, as I'm doing here. No specific pattern, just placing my 5M rhinestone as the main stone. And I'm using filler stones like 3M, 4M, or 2M, just to fill in those spots that are a little bit smaller where the 5M can't reach. I don't want to overcrowd the rhinestone, so I did leave, like, you know, a little bit of space so it could breathe. This part was pretty easy, but yeah. Seriously, I was so nervous doing this because I just felt out of my comfort zone. And it's not a lot of tutorials, and a lot of the people that are doing tutorials are like DIYers, and they probably, you know, this is their first time blinging, so I didn't know what to expect. But doing Hello Kitty's head took quite some time. It was about maybe an hour and a half, but I got through it. So next I'm going to do the name. I didn't want to do the name first because it's at the bottom, and I know that if I would have did the name, I probably would have smudged it, and I didn't want to have, I don't know, I could have bedazzled it upside down, but it just wasn't, it wasn't the vibe at the time. I wasn't even thinking about that. But now that I'm mentioning it, that could have been a good idea. But I like the way that I did the head first and then her name. So it gave everything time to really dry. So I'm using sizes 2M through 5M once again. 5M is like my main stone, which is the stone I'm going to use the most, or the stone I'm going to start off with. And I'm placing the smaller stones where they fit best. Just going along with the name. Once I finished bedazzling the name, I started thinking, like, how am I going to glue this on? Should I do it now? Should I do it later? So I decided to do it as soon as the name and the Hello Kitty head dried. I noticed everyone else in their videos, they glued on the design to the cap itself. But because my daughter wanted her cap to be pink, and I didn't want to use any acrylic paint like to paint the actual cap, I didn't know how it was going to turn out. Instead, I used the cardstock and used it as a topper. Now it is thinner, so I thought this would be best, and I'm glad I did do this when I did, because the cardstock started to like move a little bit, like as the glue started to dry. So I'm happy I glued it on top of the topper when I did. Moving right along, I'm going to use my pink rhinestones. My main stone is going to be 5M, and I am using filler stones as well. I'm going to do the honeycomb method. I already tried the corner, and the best way to do the topper with the honeycomb method is just to focus on one side or one side of the corner and do the honeycomb method, and then use the other side to apply the filler stones. So I'm just going to work on this side here to apply the honeycomb method. I'm going to go all the way up until like the ear, and I'm going to apply filler stones where they need to be filled, so that this way it's not, you know, I'm doing the honeycomb method between both of them and they're just clashing. I just wanted it to look kind of uniform in a way, and I just feel comfortable with the honeycomb method. And if you're new here, the honeycomb method is basically placing one rhinestone in between every two rhinestones to make it look like a honeycomb. And you'll see that here, but I'm only going to do this side, and I'm going to work my way up. I think it came out great. I was a little nervous because I didn't know how this was going to turn out. I was like, I've never been so on edge about a project before like this one. And I thought it was going to take me so long to do too, because a lot of people said, oh, it took me 20 hours to do my cap. It took this. It took me 6 hours. And I was watching a show. I was watching Summer House, actually. And I kept stopping for like, just to see what was going on. And if you watched the show, let me know what you think about season 10 in the comments. So next, right here is like the filler, like the whiskers on the outside. Like I showed you how I did it for the inside, but this side, I'm going to try to continue the honeycomb method. So I'm placing my stones in the honeycomb method as much as I can to make it look really seamless. And then I'm going to place smaller stones around where the 5M rhinestone doesn't fit. And those sizes ranges from 2M to 4M. And as you can see, you see how it kind of like ascends into like the unknown of the pinks, but you still kind of see the honeycomb method. That's what I was aiming for. Now, you don't have to do this. You could do like the scatter method. It would take more time to do the scatter method with the whole entire graduation cap, but for me, this worked out perfectly, and I'm glad I made the decision to do the honeycomb method on this part, because it probably would have took a lot longer, maybe 20 hours like some of the other graduation caps that I've seen on TikTok. But next we're gonna do our fill-ins with the name. Here I start from like the inside, like the cracks and the crevices first, and then I work my way out. You just place in the rhinestone that fits best. It could be any size. If the stone was too, like the space was too small, I left it blank. But even if you leave it blank, it still looks good because you didn't overcrowd it with like a bunch of rhinestones or force it. You could barely tell, especially when the spacers are a little smaller. Like if the 2M rhinestone doesn't fit, just leave it be. I'm quite sure no one would really notice that that one little space there under the M is going to show through. This is how it turned out. I love it. I wish I had a bedazzle cap when I was graduating, but let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you found this helpful. And once again, thank you for watching my channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more bedazzle content.